All right, well, welcome to another episode of the Hobby Hangout. It's me, David Cartagena, and I'm going to be going over some Ionic paints here today. A little bit of news, and we'll definitely be posting some new podcast episodes, but my wife and I did purchase a hobby store, my wife being the majority owner of the business now, with our other partner, also a David C. But we'll get more into that in some of our other videos. Today I did want to go over the Ionic paints as we've brought in a lot of new product, and one of them being Ionic paints. So I have the basic set with me. I'm going to be utilizing these paints, showcasing how they work, and I'll be painting up Princess Pearl from Arcadia Quest. All right. So the starter set of Ionic paints comes with 12 paints, I believe. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 colors. I've got them all in my wet palette here. I've actually started using these copper little palette holders here from Game Envy. They do hold the paper down, but more importantly, they actually help to prevent mold from developing in your sponge, which I find quite helpful, as I have had mold develop on sponges previously. All right, let's get started here. One thing I always do want to mention is, at least in my experience, no paint is better than any paint, really. They all do typically work at least slightly differently. And it's sort of what your preference is in terms of cover, flow. They all tend to have slight differences amongst them. Right now I typically use AK interactive paints, but I've read some good things in terms of coverage on these. So I'm just starting off with the skin color. It does cover pretty nice, and it's actually pretty smooth. All right, so I am getting pretty good coverage here. I'm just using the basic skin tone that came with the starter set. And I'm hoping to do a fairly quick paint job on this model. I don't want to go too crazy in terms of detail and highlights, but we'll see how far we can get in a short amount of time. Right now I'm just using a number 3 synthetic brush too. I'll probably move to a smaller like sable brush once I get into more of the details, but I usually use a synthetic brush for my base coats. All right, not bad initial coverage. And it's actually fairly, I'm mixing with my water and my wet palette, so it is fairly thin, but it's still doing quite a solid coverage for one coat. I usually have a little bit of a problem of, not going too crazy and spending hours and hours on detail versus trying to simplify and get down to the basics, but we'll see how I can balance it out here. I noticed that on the image she has sort of a see-through dress, so what I'm going to, just on the sleeves, so I'm going to put a little bit of this flesh tone here on the sleeves. And then I'll start going over that with the actual color of the dress afterwards. See how that works out. And let's get the back of her ears too. And let's not forget her neck. All right. Now she's got a blondish hair. I'm actually going to use some of this brown to start off. So it comes with a burnt umber in the base set. So let's do this here. Just quickly do a quick coat here across the head. It really does have some nice thick coverage. I can't recall if these ones have single pigment colors or not, but there's definitely some good coverage on here. Interested to see how it works once I start blending and mixing some of these colors together. Alright, so far I am pretty impressed with these. Obviously if you have paints, I wouldn't go out and buy a whole new set of paints if your paints are working for you. But I am impressed so far. The bottles are also very different from traditional hobby paints. So they've got a little flip lid similar to what you'd see in like almost regular craft paint. And they still have a mixing ball in there, and you also actually get a little bit more than what you normally get in other bottles. So these actually 20 milliliters. And you can still control it fairly well as you're pouring it out. It's not like you're going to get huge blobs everywhere. Interesting. Try not to spend too much time. I'll go back in with a smaller brush and clean those up afterwards, but I think I'm getting good coverage there on the headband. And then her little eyebrows are going to be blonde as well, so I'm just going to give it a base coat of this brown, similar to her hair. Alright, we've got that built up now. And you know what I'm going to do next is just a quick base coat for the dress. What I'm actually going to do is add a little bit of water in the corner of my wet palette. I've really fallen in love with these Game Envy wet palettes. They give me just enough space here. What I'm going to do is thin down a purple. So it comes with, what is it? Just purple, straight up purple. So I'm going to thin it down and see how this works. Thin it down with some water. So you can hear almost like a glaze, a little thicker than a glaze. And I'm going to, I already sort of under primed this. Just going to add a little bit darker tones in the recesses here. Give it a little bit of color once I start getting into the blues. I'm always a fan of, rather than just using black for shadows, using a color for the shadows. It's going to make it more interesting. It's going to make your model a little more dynamic. Pop on the table. There we go. A little bit more along the edges here on the bottom. Same down here. Just a little right around there. And along the back down here, we'll add a little bit of that purple. All right. Now let's turn that dress blue. I'm going to thin the blue down a little bit, not to the same level as the purple, but I am going to thin it down a little bit here to start. Let's add in some of those darker tones here. Even thin down, this has some pretty solid coverage. Impressive. It's thinned down and it's still covering almost completely. And actually pretty vibrant. I don't know if you can see how bright that is. And that's fairly thin here. I think it's actually completely covering the purple that I put down. So I might have to go back in and add a little bit. We'll see in a moment. As I mentioned, the arms have to be translucent, so I am going to have to thin it down even more, I think, here before I hit the arms. There we go. Just dry it off a little bit so I'm not getting huge puddles on my brush. Oh, got some blue on our hand. There we go. Just wipe it off with your finger quickly. I think I thinned it a little too much. There we go. Now we're getting some more solid coverage, but not too crazy. There we go. So now the dress is kind of white with blue. So I'm just going to give it this tone with the blue, and then I'm going to start highlighting it up to a white. Still trying to keep it thin. I might have to go back in with the skin tone on the dress again as I start highlighting up, just to make sure you can still kind of see the skin under there. But it is looking somewhat translucent still, so that's good. We're moving fast here. I'm still using the number 3 brush here, so I'm getting good coverage. Hopefully this is showcasing how these paints work, whether it's something that appeals to you or not. The pigments that they use are very nice, I have to say. All right. So I think I'm almost done with this initial coat of the blue. So even though I had purple in those recesses, like I don't want it to look purple. It's just in there to add some more shadow to it. So I'm still going to coat it in blue. But because there's purple underneath it, it should come through a little bit darker. That being said, I think I'm still going to add a little bit more purple once I'm done with this blue coat. Or maybe not, I don't know. Let me see how this dries. That coverage is pretty solid. I'm going to start working it up to white. Before that though, I'm just going to take this skin tone, water it down a little bit. And I'm going to be a little bit more specific because the first time I was kind of rough there in terms of where the actual arms was, and I think I made it a little bit too thick. You can see there. Her arm wouldn't be that thick. Some massive arms on her. I'm just going to add in a little bit more. And again, I thinned this down first. Add a little bit more up here. Okay. Now let's make some white. White with our blue. Let's see how this goes. Let's make it thin. A little bit thinner. Wash my brush off and let's pick it up. All right, let's see, where do we want this? Try to stay on the highlights. Now there's a lot of texture on her dress kind of going horizontal. So I'm gonna kind of just pass my brush along to build up the highlights in that. So kind of building a little bit of texture along, or matching the texture on the dress. Help it look more like fabric. Going down the lines here. Now as we get to the bottom, we do want it to still look fairly dark at the bottom. So although I'm still highlighting all the way to the bottom, I'm still trying to leave some dark there. And as I start building up the layers, I'm not gonna, at some point I'm gonna stop going quite so far down with the highlighted layers. And then just sort of keep it to the top. That way I draw the eye to the top of the model as much as possible. I don't know if you know, those of you who have watched, oh my goodness, why am I, The Never-Ending Story. So that's who this character is supposed to be for Arcadia Quest. It was still one of my favorite games. I know it's a little older now, but I remember kickstarting that game and just loving all of the figures, the gameplay, the player versus enemy concept in it. It's always a blast, and I still play it with my kids and my wife when we get a chance. Especially when we can leave it out and then sort of get to it every now and then. Always good to play. But this was one of the promotional figures, and I snatched up the opportunity to get her. I think it was my brother that got it for me. He went to a convention where they were selling it, and I asked him if he could pick it up for me. Speaking of conventions, we're planning on going to TCTC in Vancouver, Terminal City Tabletop Convention this year. If anyone in Vancouver were watching us, or anyone attending that, by all means, and sees us, feel free to stop us and say hello. All right, we've started to build some layers there. You can see her arm kind of shining through there still. So trying to make it a little see-through. As that's drying, let's go for a second coat. So at this point, I am starting to think this is probably going to be the last highlight that I'm going to be using this number 3 brush for. I'm definitely feeling like I'm not getting sharp enough lines for what I want. So I think it's almost time to switch over to the size 1. But I do enjoy using as large a brush as possible for as long as possible. It just makes the painting a little bit faster. You just got that larger surface with the brush tip, and you can make more progress quickly. I might grab some more white, mix it in there, and start getting a nice light blue. All right, there goes number 3, and we got number 1 now. I'm still going to continue with the synthetic for now, since I'm working primarily on the dress, and it's a very large surface, so I'm not too concerned about too many fine lines. I'll probably save the sable for the face and maybe the hair. As I mentioned, as I start getting to this lighter blue, I mean, it's still light blue, you can see on the palette, but once you start putting it next to other blues, it definitely pops almost like white until it starts to dry. But I'm definitely not going to start going all the way down quite as much as the other blue. This will probably be the last coat that reaches near the edge. And the next one I'll try and keep it higher up. At our store we also introduced a painting desk, which I think hopefully starts to get some usage. I know my kids have been using it. They definitely enjoy the new desk. The purpose there is also to potentially start teaching, doing some painting classes, but also for people to just try out some of the paints. So we put out some of these paints for anyone to try them out. Obviously it's not the full line, but at least you can get a sense for them. As I said, I'm just using the base set here. No other colors, no other lines. Just see how this goes. I think she's coming along nicely. I know in the card she's definitely got almost a full-on white dress. I don't know how white I'm gonna get, but we'll see. As I said, I don't want to spend too much time on this. It's not intended to be a tutorial. It's more of a, like I said, just a test of these Ionic paints, as I've never used them before. But I do like the coverage so far. And the blending, or the mixing, sorry, not the blending. All right, so now when we get to the back, I don't want to get too crazy here, because like I said, this is for a board game. It's not a display figure, it's not a display model, it's not for any kind of competition. So I'm not going to get too crazy with the shading and contrast on the back here, but I do want to do a couple of layers. Trying to keep it maybe a little bit more in the center, draw the eye there. All right, now we gotta go even whiter. Let's thin it down as well. Just give it the faintest hint of blue there. There we go. Wipe my brush off. And I am going to try adding just a little bit more of that skin tone. A little bit of white to the skin tone, just a little bit. I don't want to get too pale. But near the top here, I just wanted to highlight her shoulders a little bit more. right, let's see this white blue. Where am I going to put it? Where do I want the white highlights here? There we go. Highlights, highlights, highlights. All right, getting there. I think I'm spending too much time on this dress after I said I wasn't going to. And I think I gotta call this dress done at some point soon. Otherwise I'm not gonna get to the other parts of it in time. All right, now I'm gonna go pure white. I'm gonna thin it down. Just thin it down with some water here, clean water. And let's do some final highlights here on the dress with white. Then I'm gonna move on to the skin. I obviously can do a lot more, but I don't want to spend too much more time here. I want to test some of these other colors, especially the magentas. I want to try putting on some of that blush and just making the skin pop a little bit more. So let's see how that works. So I'm just making sure the white doesn't pool in some of the recesses, because obviously that's not where I want it to look white. The recesses should look slightly darker. All right, I'm gonna leave it like that for now. I wanna move on to the face. So I'm going to pull out my size 0 sable here. So on the face, what am I gonna do here? Let's start with a bit of magenta. I'm gonna take a little bit of magenta and mix it in with the skin tone. It's gonna give me obviously a reddish glow to it. Don't wanna get too crazy. And I want it thin. As I said, I'm still getting quite a bit of coverage on here, but let's see how this works here. So, toss it in the ear area. I'm gonna build it up around the eyes there. Coming down here, I'm gonna put it in her mouth. And I'm gonna go back and clean this up with the other skin tone again, but this will give me a little bit of a foundation. All right, some blush underneath the eyebrows, around the nose, especially under the nose. All right, I'm gonna add a little bit of this to like her elbows here. There we go. A little bit to the underside of her arm. Just trying to create the more shadow tones and breathe a little bit more life to skin. Same with the other hand here. There we go. Looking good. Between her fingers and just on the back here. All right, now let's go back up to the regular skin tone. A little too much paint on the brush there. There we go. Brighter fingers here as we can. 2, 3, 4. There we go. And your thumb. And your pinky. All right, now let's blend these two a little bit closer to each other. Intermediary color there. Let's blend these two a little bit better. All right, now I gotta figure out how I'm gonna lighten the skin tone. I could use yellow or I could use white. I'm gonna test it. So let's see what it looks like with yellow. I obviously don't want it to look too jaundiced or anything like that. If I use a little bit of white in there. I'm gonna grab a little bit of purple, or sorry, not purple, orange. A little bit of orange and then more white. All right, I think I'm getting closer to a skin tone that I like. So let's start highlighting that up. All right, she's getting there. Let's highlight the top of her hand. All right, let's do one more push with some white on the skin tone there. Again, trying to just draw more and more of that focus to the front here. All right, now let's do a little bit of blush. Gonna need a little bit more clean water here in the corner. What I'm going to do is get some red. Ooh, this thing is potent. And water it down a lot here. All right, so I'm going to do with the red here is just, I'm going to do a couple of things. One, I'm going to add a little bit of a blush to her cheek. And then I'm going to push the highlights a little bit more, and then I'm going to try doing a glaze of flesh again, just to help tone it down and blend it all together. So, I mean, the paint seems to work really well both for regular coverage and being able to make a glaze with it, so that's good to know. No real like muddiness or anything with the glaze, it works. Give that a moment to dry, and then I'll do a second glaze. And I think I'll actually add a little bit to her lips here. Maybe a little bit around her nose. And I'll go back to her cheeks one more pass here. Again, just trying to add a little bit of color to her face. Same on this side. Alright, and I'm going to make that glaze again with magenta. Also very, very potent here. Very good coverage on these. I'm impressed. I am impressed. And I'm just going to put this above her eyes. So she's got a bit of like a magenta eyeshadow. So I just want to add that here. Not a lot, just a little bit there. Alright, that face is looking pretty good actually. I don't know if I want to highlight it more. Sure, let's go a little bit brighter. Add a little bit more white to that. Really try and punch up those highlights. I'm gonna thin it down though. Alright, so it's nice and thin, you can see here. Very thin, almost a glaze. Now I'm gonna pick out some of these real main features that I want to pop. So the nose, tops of the cheeks. All right, I think I like that. All right, that's how she's looking so far. Might do one more blend of just the regular base tone. Not straight, a little bit of the highlight, but almost the mid-tone here. So I'm just going to water that down and just use that to sort of feather some of these layers together. All right, let's do her eyes. So then we got some black eyeshadow. We'll see how this goes. Not bad, not bad. I didn't think I was gonna be able to do it. Let's see if I can do the other eye. Alright, so I got the black parts, and now I gotta paint out the blue parts and the whites. It's gonna be tricky here. Let's see if I can get the white. It's gonna be hard here, I think. See if I don't make a mess. See if I don't make a mess of these eyes. Be interesting to see how much coverage the white gets. Let's see here. See if the white can cover in one coat or not. I don't know. There's a lot of colors in there. Alright, I think it was successful. Let's see the other eye. Not bad. She's got a little bit of eyeshadow along the bottom. I don't know if I should try it or not. I'm going for it. No, I think I ruined it. I got it on her chin a little bit. Her cheek, I mean. Yeah, no good. Alright, let's see if I can salvage it. one's gonna need more than one coat, I think. The eyes are going all over the place here on me. Let's see if I can clean it up a little bit. Nope, making more of a mess. And well, this is normal. This happens during painting. I know a lot of YouTubers won't show their mistakes. But hey, that's part of the painting process. So that black line along the bottom of the eye is pretty dark, so I'm going to have to go in with a darker medium tone here and then work back up to that highlight in order to cover the blue and the black. There we go, that covered it better. I should have left it as it is. I thought I could push it up further. My bad. Let's see if I can fix the white part too. Alright, I think that white part's fixed. Let's see if I can get some of this lighter tone on the skin again, now that I messed up all the face. We'll see how the end result looks. I'm obviously not going to spend too much time trying to reblend everything, but hopefully we can get okay results here. Let's mix some blue with white and get a lighter blue here. Let's see if I can highlight the eyes a little better here. Alright, let's jump to the hair quickly here. We'll follow these lines as much as possible. I'm using the ochre on top of the brown, the burnt umber I think it was, yeah. I'm going to give this a quick coat over top. And then I'll use their yellow to finish off her blonde hair. Alright, next is just pure yellow. Let's see how this goes. Yellow is notorious for not having great coverage. This has been sitting on the wet palette for about an hour now, so this is thinning out. But let's see how it goes. The ochre is still fairly wet too, so I'm kind of wet blending here as I go. I've always learned when painting hair that you don't want to, even though there's strands here, right? You don't want to paint each individual strand when you highlight, because that ends up giving you like what's typically referred to as like spaghetti hair, where the hair just on your miniature just looks like it's a bunch of spaghetti noodles essentially. So you don't want to do that. What you want to do, as I get that coat down, then you mix a little bit of that with the ochre so I can get a darker yellow. And now I'm going to want sort of that crown reflection in the hair. So I'm going to darken a little bit some of the areas here. And then grab a little bit more ochre. Darken them up a bit more. Especially here at the base of the head. Around the ears, darken a little bit more. Base of the scalp a little bit darker. While I'm here and this has dried a little bit, let me try and fix her face. She's looking rough. All right, now let's go with the brighter yellow, and we want to make a little crown here, just the top of the head. It's where the light's more reflective, and then a little bit of a crown on the back. All right, now let's mix that with some white, get some really bright yellow here, and go even smaller in that crown. Go back to the yellow, kind of blend this in a little bit. I'm going to take a bit of brown and a bit of ochre. There we go. I'm going to try and make it into a bit of a wash here. Oh, I almost forgot about her eyebrows. All right, so now this wash that I kind of made, I'm going to try and get it into a couple of grooves. I don't want to just dump it everywhere. I want to pick where I want to put it into some of those darker grooves. You still want to define the hairlines, but like I said, you don't want to get spaghetti hair. Alright, I've always been spending way too much time on this figure for what I said it was going to be. So let's finish her up. Let's finish this rope around her head. And this jewel on her forehead. I'm just going to clean this up. So going it over again with the burnt umber. Getting some pretty solid coverage here. That's nice. Even though the burnt umber's been sitting on that wet palette for, as I said, about an hour. I'm still getting good coverage. I went a little too wide there and missed the rope, so I'm just wetting my brush. Essentially using it to scrub clean that hair. While that dries, I'm just going to move over to the other rope. Let me just dry that up a little bit more. If I put brown paint on there with all that water, it'll just flood everywhere, so. Alright, well, there's obviously a lot more time I could have done on this, and I could spend a lot more time on here. I'm going to just paint this little jewel on her head, this emerald kind of greenish color. Make it a little darker along the bottom so it looks more like a jewel. Lighter along the top here. Even lighter. Just give it a little specular highlight at the top there. Alright, so I think I'll call it done there for now. I think there's still obviously more that I could do, but I am over an hour at this point, and the purpose of this video is just to highlight the Ionic paints and how they paint, give them a test. Just as I mentioned, this is the basic set. Pretty good coverage on these. This black has been sitting on the palette for, again, a little over an hour at this point, so just water it down a little bit, but still getting nice coverage. All right, I think I'll stop there for now. Good enough to showcase the paints, I think. All right, let me know what you think.